This is Jeff Riddle, Grower Relations Manager with Purdue Agribusiness. Today we're here in Wake Forest, North Carolina, looking at an organic canola field. The purpose of our visit today is to look at cold damage. About 2 weeks ago we had a hard freeze with temperatures down to 18 degrees, and the grower told us that his canola had started stem extension and just begun flowering. So we're down here today to look at some of the damage from that cold event. First thing we're looking for, because he was in stem extension, there's a lot of water in that stem trying to push it up as it grows. And that makes that crop vulnerable for cold damage, where that water inside the stem could freeze. And if it freezes hard enough and gets enough expansion, you can actually see cracks in the stems. So you can see here, we found one plant that has that stem extension, or cracking in the stem where it was in stem extension at the time of that freeze. Now, if this crack is sort of minor, the plant will self-heal. If that cavity is very deep, what happens is that plant, it can interfere with the uptake of the nutrients to the upper half of the plant. You don't get as much yield. The other event that we look for in cold events was in pod set. Since flowering was starting, the flowers that were open at that time, they get so cold from the cold event that the flower will fall off and not set a pod. So if you look along this stem, you'll see there's a pretty significant area here where these flowers did not set pods. This is an example where it did set a pod. You can see the pod sets here, but those flowers evidently weren't open at that time of the cold event. These were, and they have been lost. Now, a rapeseed plant will sense that and try and put it on more flowers to compensate for any loss of pod sets. The other thing that you might see around a cold event is some drooping or curving in the stems. If you look here, there's some curvature in this stem. You might see it in the primary stem. Some people call it S-hook or a shepherd's hook in the stem. That's another sort of clue that you had a hard freeze or cold event while the crop was in stem extension and flower. As a whole, I would say the biggest concern on what we're seeing here today has been on the pods that did not get set. That may ding them a little bit on yield. The plant will try and compensate for it. In looking throughout this field for the splits in the stems, we're only seeing that sporadically through the crop, so it doesn't appear too bad. And the S-hooking or shepherd hooking, no problem at all there. There'll be some of that, it's just the stems won't be as straight. But as a whole, I think this crop's in pretty good shape. Again, you might get dinged a little bit in his overall yield from where these pods didn't set. Thank you for your time.